Hi everyone, it's Adam Cockburn here from Low & Co Realty. Thanks for checking in this month. We're looking at the Wellington real estate data, of course, for the month of August 2023 versus the last couple of Augusts. In summary, folks, Wellington values are rising. We continue to be in a seller's market. I've been saying that for a few months now, but the data clearly shows that values are indeed rising over the last few months. Buyers, my message continues to be get in amongst it. Don't wait for things to get better. It is unlikely they're going to. And sellers, the good news is market is really firming. It's definitely much more straightforward to sell now than it was, say, 6 months ago or 12 or 18 months ago. So let's get into the detail. Median sale price, $750,000 in August versus $775 in August 2022. Now, if you follow these videos, you will notice that I've been saying consistently that Wellington values have been broadly stabilizing since July last year, and so this is a good example of that. From August last year to August this year, down just 3% on the median sale price. Again, if you follow these videos, you'll know that I don't pay too much attention to the median sale price because it's deeply influenced by not just underlying values, but also the mix of property sold. The best guide for the underlying values, which of course is really what we're all about, is the Real Estate Institute House Price Index. So let's have a look at that now. Here's what I call the league tables, and you'll see there that Wellington's still down from the peak by 23.4%. We were down by as much as almost 26%, so we've recovered a few percent over the last 4 months or so. But the other point to note is that Auckland at down nearly 21 and New Zealand overall down over 16. The gap between Wellington and the rest of the country, or the most other locations of the country, is narrowing. Wellington values started to fall earliest and steepest compared to the rest of the country. We started recovering before most other locations, and this is just reflective of that. That gap is narrowing in terms of the drop since the peak. If we look now at the 1 year results, again a consistent story. So Wellington there, 5.3% drop over the last year in terms of the house price index, exactly the same as seen in Auckland in the last 12 months, and only just ahead of New Zealand overall at 4.7. So again, same story. Wellington fell quickly, it fell soonest. The rest of the country then followed suit, and over the last 12 months the performance of Wellington has been very consistent with the rest of the country. In the last 3 months you can see there that Wellington's recovery at 3.5% in the last 3 months, compared to 3.1 for Auckland and 2.1 for New Zealand. So is Wellington leading the recovery compared to most other locations? It seems that way. Just as we fell first, we seem to be recovering earliest as well, or amongst the earliest ones. Looking closely at the different territorial authorities in the Wellington region, interestingly, you can see there in particular Porirua and Wellington City. They have performed really strongly over the last 3 months. 7% growth in Porirua City, 6.5% growth in Wellington City. Again, if you break it down into the smaller data sets, the territorial authorities being Wellington City or Porirua City in these cases, there is less data, of course, than there is for the whole region. So those results do tend to bounce around a bit, and you can see that in the graph there. That graph in that particular slide there is that the Wellington City house price index, the blue line showing the monthly results and the orange line showing the 3 monthly results. But the message is it does bounce up and down. It's quite a sawtooth, quite a jagged sawtooth. So Wellington City, for example, 6.5% over the last 3 months. Next month it could be back down 2%. So it does bounce around a little more than the region across the whole region, of course. Looking now at new listings. So 461 new listings in August versus 510 the August 2022 and 439 2 years ago. So more listings than we saw in August 2 years ago, but fewer than what we saw in August 2022. So new listing volumes sort of normalizing, if you like. Compared to the August average, 562, we're still quite a way down there, and you can see that because the blue bar chart is quite short of the white horizontal line there. But compared to the last two Augusts, we're there or thereabouts. And again, the next line here, you can see that quite clearly vendors have been on strike since September 2022, and you can see that with the blue bar charts being significantly below the x-axis, and that has been consistently the case from September 2022 through to July this year, and just in August last month, we're seeing there that blue bar chart is only just slightly below the x-axis, representing the 10% fewer than 12 months prior. So 10% is still less than the number of new listings coming on a year ago, but the degree to which it's less is far smaller. So normalising is the way I would say it. Number of sales, 512 in August versus 525 last August and 532 in August 2021. So again, 512, less than the last two Augusts, but only by a small amount. Again, if you compare it to the long-term average at 620, we're still quite a bit short, but what we're seeing last month is quite consistent with the previous two Augusts. So all three, I suppose, have been low sales volumes compared to what's normal, and that would be reflective in 2021 at least, I would suggest, of the real tight supply we had. And then as we came into 2022, we had much more supply, but the buyers were pulling back then, so they were reluctant to transact. Now we're seeing buyers come back into the market, but new listings have been tight again, and so that will be providing at least some constraint on the number of deals that can be done. But overall, sales volumes normalising compared to the last couple of years, recovering again a little, heading back to normal. And again, you can see that in this bar chart here showing the results, the number of sales compared to 12 months prior. So in May and June, you can see there we had a good 25 to 30% more sales than we saw in May and June 2022. July, we dropped back down below again, and in August, we are almost at parity at only 2% fewer sales taking place than a year ago. So again, that's a message for vendors, and that is that whereas 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, very hard to sell your property, now not nearly so risky, and some decent prices happening out there with the buyers showing some frustration at the lack of new listings and having to compete actually quite hard on some properties. How long has it taken to sell? And this is really quite a turnaround, folks. So 38 days in August versus 59 days in August 2022, and 34 days in August 2021. So in August this year, we are almost back down to the duration that we were seeing it take 2 years ago before the peak was actually reached. So 38 days, it's the first time we've seen something, that's the shortest duration on average to sell since December 2021. So a big turnaround. We were consistently seeing sort of around the 50 days for the last 4 or 5 months or so. So 38 days is a big reduction indeed in the duration to sell. So again, good sign for vendors. The risk of not selling or the risk of it taking too long to sell is greatly reduced. Inventory, number of weeks worth of supply we're seeing on the market. Again, this is a reasonably consistent story that we've seen over the last few months, folks. 11 weeks versus 20 weeks a year ago and 5 weeks 2 years ago. So certainly a big drop compared to what we saw a year ago, but still double or over double what we saw 2 years ago. But for the last 3 months, we've seen it between 10 and 11 weeks worth of supply. Long-term average is 14 weeks. So on this basis, we've definitely been consistently in a seller's market in Wellington over the last 3 months. How many listings we're seeing on Trademe? So we're seeing a bit of a stabilisation kind of pattern here over the last 3 or so months. So as of a couple of days ago, when we're recording this in September, 1,843 listings on Trademe for the Wellington region versus 2,526 a year ago and 1,161 2 years ago. So the volume we're seeing now is, pretty much right in between what we saw a year ago and what we saw 2 years ago. Of course, 2 years ago, we were just approaching the absolute peak of the market. The market was extremely tight indeed. 1 year ago, we'd seen an enormous swelling of stock. So 27% down compared to a year ago and 59% more than what we saw 2 years ago. And again, if you look at the pattern there, it's quite clear. Look at the blue bar charts there. Over the last 3 months, it has been dropping still, but only dropping very gradually. And the red line there, which shows the 6-month average, you can see the overall trend. It has definitely been coming down over the last 6 months or so. And the change in Trademe listings, again, that next graph you can see, this is the number of Trademe listings compared to the number we saw 12 months prior, and we've been pretty much consistently been between 25 and 27 or 28% fewer listings than we saw 12 months prior for the last 4 months or so, but it does seem to be stabilising. So we're stabilised at around that 25, 26, 27% fewer than a year ago. So in summary, folks, the values of real estate in Wellington are rising again. New listing volumes are recovering, and similarly sales volumes are normalising as well. The duration to sell has significantly reduced in August. It's the shortest we saw since December 2021. Great news for vendors. Inventory remains low. We've been in a stable seller's market for the last 3 months. Trademe listings continue to be about 27% lower than a year ago. Message to sellers is the market is firming, values are rising, selling your property again is not high risk like it has been a year or so ago. Buyers, don't wait for things to get better. And a big shout out, of course, to all the data where I get it from, Real Estate Institute and realestate.co.nz. Thanks for that. And thanks to you all for checking in as usual. If you want any advice, give us a shout. You know how to get me. It's Adam at Low & Co. See you next time.